Good afternoon and welcome to the California Statewide LGBTQ Small Business Insurance Resource Virtual Town Hall. Hosted today by Mark Morales, Chair of Insurance Diversity Task Force, in conjunction with California Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara. Before we get started, we'd like to remind you of a few housekeeping guidelines. For this event, audio, video, and chat will be monitored and recorded. This event is being streamed live on Facebook at www.facebook.com/insurancegov. The recording of this town hall will be available on the CDI website at www.insurance.ca.gov. We respect all participants in this town hall today, and we want to create a safe space for all. By default, all participants will be muted and video is disabled. Video will be on for speakers only. Let's get to today's agenda. The welcome remarks by the event host and moderator, Mark Morales. Welcome and opening statements from California Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara. Small business, new opportunities, and future support presented by Julie Claus from the United States Small Business Administration, and Small Business Benefits and Opportunities and CPUC LGBTQ targets presented by Marquita Thomas from Los Angeles LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce, followed by a question and answer session led by today's moderator, Mark Morales, and ending with closing comments from our special guest. At this time, we would like to introduce today's moderator, Mark Morales. Mark has joined the Diversity Task Force in 2015 as the first LGBT business advocate. In his first year, he increased LGBT-owned business enterprise participation in the summit by 700%. In the past 5 years, LGBT business spent by insurance company has increased from 5 million to 10.2 million, with 49 million in contracts signed with LGBT businesses in 2019. Please welcome the current chair of the Insurance Diversity Task Force, our moderator, Mark Morales.
Thank you, Tanya, and welcome everyone to the Small Business Resource Town Hall. We are gathered here today to help your small businesses navigate the resources available to you during the COVID crisis. As an SBA lender, I have seen firsthand how challenging it has been for businesses to find and apply for the proper programs to help them survive. As a business owner, I know intimately how frustrating it is with shutdowns, stay-at-home orders, drop-in sales, denial of insurance claims, safety and occupancy protocols, and keeping up with ongoing expenses like payroll and rent. So without further ado, I will introduce each of our guests today who will give a brief presentation, and then we will move on to questions submitted by you prior to the event. First up, we have Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara. Ricardo Lara is California's 8th elected insurance commissioner. As leader of the nation's largest state consumer protection agency, he is charged with protecting California consumers during the COVID-19 pandemic and now the devastating fires throughout the state. He has been busier than ever. The commissioner has taken many actions to protect homeowners, consumers, workers, and businesses. While businesses have encountered problems in the past following wildfires and other disasters, we have seen nothing on this scale with thousands of businesses closed and drastically reduced payroll. Commissioner Lara is here today to provide resources and answer your questions. Go ahead, Commissioner Lara.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you for inviting me and being part of this roundtable discussion. We share some of the resources for our LGBTQ businesses really working hard to survive during this pandemic and in such unprecedented times. It's especially meaningful for me to be here talking to you all with, essentially with my community. I'm proud to serve as the first LGBTQ person ever elected statewide. and to be joined by my friend Marquita, Julie, Mark, who have all been great partners in our fight for small business survival, equality in the industry, and moving forward to a greater, more diverse equality. I really want to just thank them for their leadership. I stand on their shoulders. What can I say? They have really paved the way for so many of us to really come up the ranks and really represent not only you all as a community, but your business interest now with the Department of Insurance. I also want to acknowledge and thank our outreach partners, including the City of San Francisco Economic and Development Department, the National LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce, all the elected officials that assisted in the outreach to our LGBTQ small businesses in their districts, and the numerous of chambers of commerce throughout California that value our community, especially our LGBTQ small businesses. Because, you know, once you get an LGBTQ owned business in your neighborhood, it can only be, you know, everything could go up from there. You know, we not only bring our diversity, but we bring our flair, our pizzazz, and we make everything much better. So as you know, our LGBTQ community, again, has iconic businesses that have closed permanently, unfortunately, or they are really hanging by a thread. Many of those locations have been in existence for decades and serve as safe places for us, which unfortunately haven't survived this tremendous economic downturn and uncertainty. You know, our community once again has been hit hard, the hardest by this pandemic. But let us not forget, you know, the tremendous impact of our LGBTQ owned businesses, not just in California, but throughout the United States. Today's situation with the pandemic reminds us of the HIV epidemic, when the nation had to learn a really hard lesson that the enemy here is the virus, not each other, and especially not our LGBTQ community, and that discrimination against those affected or at risk weakens the nation in our collective fight against this pandemic. You know, we can't afford to lose ground in the fight against the HIV infections. Even more, this pandemic only exacerbates the need for equality and access to healthcare. I'm proud to say that last year I issued a notice to insurance companies that a person's PrEP, history of PrEP use cannot be used to deny them the ability to purchase life insurance, disability, or long-term care insurance coverage, or even charge higher premiums for that coverage. You know, this is why it matters to have a state insurance commissioner that comes from our community and understands the unique circumstances that so many of us live through. Since the pandemic, I have issued a notice to our health insurers regarding their obligation to provide health insurance coverage for PrEP without cost sharing, including deductibles and co-payments and co-insurance. Crucially, this includes more than just the drug itself. All of the medical services necessary for taking PrEP must be covered without cost sharing, including healthcare provider office and telehealth visits for initial prescription and ongoing follow-up care, plus other tests. Now, under the Affordable Care Act, insurance companies offer this preventative care without any cost sharing. So, you know, among many other challenges COVID has presented, it has also highlighted the continued discrimination against people living with HIV. This is why last year I partnered with Senator Gonzalez and the Senate Insurance Committee to change California insurance HIV-related underwriting laws, which were outdated and unfairly discriminatory because they allowed insurers essentially to refuse life and disability income insurance applications based on your HIV status or your HIV test, which is ridiculous. So starting January 2023, insurance companies will be prohibited from declining an application or enrollment request for coverage under a policy for life insurance or disability income insurance based solely on the person's HIV status. I mean, I can't believe this was happening even here in California. So again, you know, this new year brought a lot of hope, not just for the vaccine, that can bring an end to this pandemic, but also about possibilities that change under the new administration. The Trump administration tried to erode healthcare protections, but here in California, we continue to fight to enforce and expand our current laws to protect consumers living with HIV. I'm proud to say that I led the effort with 17 other insurance commissioners to submit a letter to the Secretary of Health and Human Services, who now we know who that is, Javier Becerra. The changes by the previous administration really undermined the civil rights protections of millions of consumers, created an uneven playing field for health insurers, and negatively affected state insurance markets. So to the extent a person's health coverage is subject to federal regulation, the previous administration's final federal rule would make it harder for our LGBTQ community, women, those living with disabilities, and individuals whose primary language was other than English to access healthcare. But we can protect many Californians through our strong state laws, and I'm proud that we have so many of those. I also just quickly want to say that I also just issued a general counsel opinion letter in December to insurance companies clarifying that under existing California law, these companies must not deny coverage for gender-affirming medical care for gender dysmorphia based solely on a patient's age. For far too long, individuals diagnosed with gender dysmorphia had to battle a host of challenges to get access to gender-affirming care in order to be their true selves. And so, I'm proud to say that again, as your insurance commissioner, we're stepping up to fight for the rights of our community. I want to briefly talk about the diversity initiative. One of our most important actions I can take to ensure our LGBTQ businesses not just survive, but thrive is our work with Insurance Diversity Initiative. The estimated 1.4 million LGBTQ run companies in the United States generate $1.7 trillion a year in revenue, which is larger than the economy of many European countries. My department's diversity initiative is a transparency initiative that involves collecting and publicly sharing critical diversity data with two really key goals in mind. One, increasing insurance companies' sourcing of goods and services from LGBTQ-owned businesses and other diverse business owners. And two, seeing the corporate boards of these insurance companies really look like, and making sure that they increasingly reflect the makeup and perspectives of our diverse consumers, which in California we know is extremely diverse. It's amazing how shining the light on this issue really moves accountability and action. Since the first insurer supplier diversity survey that we did in 2012, there has been an upward trajectory in dollars that insurance companies have spent with LGBTQ-owned businesses. In the first year, I have to say, when we got the data back, the industry reported shockingly that they were procuring goods. I think it was only a total of a little over $100,000 in services from LGBTQ-owned businesses. 8 years later, based on our latest California survey, insurance companies reported spending $10.3 million with LGBTQ businesses just here in California. And although insurers now spend millions with our LGBTQ-owned businesses, the numbers are simply not as high as they should or can be, quite honestly, especially relatively to the trillions of dollars in premiums collected from consumers across our country. So the diversity initiative and the work of our diversity task force remains even more critical during the pandemic that disproportionately continues to impact the lives and livelihoods of so many of our state diverse business owners. Again, I want to acknowledge Mark, who is our diversity task force chair. He is the first LGBTQ person to lead the diversity task force, and I'm really looking forward to working with Mark and the task force to find greater economic opportunities for our LGBTQ businesses. Briefly, I want to talk about the pandemic. The pandemic has really exposed not only the dividing line in our healthcare system, but in our economy. And too often our LGBTQ individuals and businesses and those owned by people of color are on the wrong side of it. As your insurance commissioner, I've been really working alongside local business leaders to help through this crisis. From day one of the pandemic, my priority has been really threefold: getting money back to consumers and businesses, helping our small businesses file insurance claims and combat fraud, and protect the health care across every person here in California. We have taken more than 20 separate actions since the pandemic. I'll talk a little bit about those during the question and answer. But primarily, I want to just highlight that I ordered insurance companies to give back refunds to motorists and small businesses due to the lower risk at the workplace or on the road. We all wanted to stay home and we were forced to close our businesses. So that really brought down the risk that you were paying for, which essentially no longer reflects the premium that you were paying as a consumer. So I wanted those refunds to go back to you. I'm proud to say that that's resulted in $1.2 billion in relief so far to drivers. And I expect these cost savings to continue as long as we're seeing reduced risks of accidents and lower business losses. California, I'm proud to say, as your insurance commissioner, I went further than any other state in ordering insurance companies to also return premiums to our business community. And I still do not, I still think we need to do more, especially for our small businesses that continue to suffer. And as we look to, turning the page to 2020, there's still going to be more that our insurance company has to do to help businesses recover. And I'm currently looking at what those are and looking with Mark on the task force and so many of the task force members. Again, I want to just thank you for being here. Recently, I just want to say we joined the campaign with the Coalition Against Insurance Fraud to make sure people are aware of the potential COVID vaccine scams. A few things just to look out for. I have to say, don't pay scammers. During the public health crisis, you should not have to pay anything out of pocket. And you should not have to pay to get your name on a list to get a vaccine. We're starting to see these scams pop up. It's also important to mention that unfortunately there are scammers who are going to advertise false treatments and vaccines. I encourage you to check with your healthcare provider or the state health officials on vaccine distribution plans. Look, last year brought many challenges like nothing the world has ever seen before, and we still are reeling from the pandemic. But I know that we will rise like we always have, and we will overcome and be even stronger. I want you to know that I'm committed to doing everything in my power, both as your insurance commissioner and as an out and proud member of our community, to ensuring that our businesses survive. I look forward to your answering your questions. And again, thank you for having me, and I'm really honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Laura. I really appreciate not only the words that you have given us today, but also the refund of my auto insurance premiums. I did really love that. Next up from the U.S. Small Business Administration, we have Julie Klaus. Julie is the District Director of the SBA San Francisco District Office, where she oversees delivery of SBA's programs and services within 14 counties in Northern California. Prior to joining the SFDO, Julie held numerous positions within SBA, including Deputy District Director of the Washington Metropolitan Area District Office, Chief Marketing and Outreach Attorney in the Office of General Counsel, and Public Affairs Specialist with the Michigan District Office. Julie has also volunteers her time for colorectal cancer advocacy efforts and is a board member of the Colorectal Cancer Alliance. Take it away, Julie.
Thank you, Mark. And thank you to the Commissioner and your team for the invitation to come speak with you all today. Lots going on, right? And for small businesses, this has been a really devastating year for so many. And Commissioner, I think you said took the words out of my mouth. We're looking at 2021 as the year to not only survive, but thrive. And so with that, I'm going to see if I can successfully share my screen. I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about SBA, and not just the COVID related, but I do like to take a minute to, whoops, if I go a little too fast there, to remind you of the breadth of the other services and things available from SBA as well, especially if you're in a position where you are maybe still looking for some new revenue opportunities. Maybe you had what was a temporary pivot in your business, and now you're looking to make that a permanent pivot. no matter what situation you are in as a business owner right now, chances are you can use some assistance. And so everything that SBA offers really can be broken down into these 4 buckets. Our access to capital, which is everything from microfinancing all the way up through venture capital and equity financing, through government contracting. And I think this is a good opportunity for businesses who are maybe thought about federal contracting in the past and just haven't really taken the plunge. We know a lot of state and local budgets are really tight because of the COVID response and the money that has been expended in that regard, but the federal government is still spending. And so if you haven't thought about this before, this might be the time to explore it. And in SBA, we have a lot of different certification programs. We also goal our fellow agencies. All of these are in an effort to help make contracting more accessible to small businesses. And we do a lot of education and programming to teach you how to be successful in contracting with federal agencies. And then the thing that I think is actually most valuable that we offer is free business advising. So whether you want to work with one of our resource partners, we have the Small Business Development Centers, we have SCORE, we have Women Business Centers, and Veteran Business Outreach Centers. All of them provide free confidential advising. So whether you go 1 time or you go 100 times, it's always free. And you can be matched with experts. So if you need to talk about financing, if you need to have someone help you with your financial statements, if you're looking for help applying for all these assistance programs at the federal level and state level to help your business, whatever your needs are, they have an advisor that's there to help you. And then our disaster assistance, which has kind of become the theme in this past year. So this is where I want to talk about some of our COVID assistance available and give you guys some updates. The recent legislation that was signed at the end of December did put some more funding back in some of these programs and also authorize some new programs. So I'm just really quickly going to go through the updates, and then we'll spend a little bit of time talking a little bit more about the Paycheck Protection Program. So kind of 2 buckets of support: debt deferment and relief. We have for anybody who has a pre-existing disaster loan, and we're talking prior to COVID. So if you were the victim of a wildfire or some other natural disaster and have an SBA loan, we are continuing to defer those payments, and now it'll be deferred for another 3 months. That's happening automatically. Also, our debt relief program. So if you are a business that has pre-existing SBA debt, whether it's in our 7A program, 504, or microloan program, last year we had the ability to pay 6 months of your principal and interest payments. We are extending that program additionally. You can have additional months added on, and then people who maybe never participated, there's a way for many types of businesses to also now participate in that program. The best way to get information about this one is to talk to your lender, whichever lender holds your loan. Okay, let's talk about loans and grants. So I think the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, or EIDL, has been in existence this whole time to help businesses with working capital loans to support your business expenses. So every business that's been affected by COVID is eligible to apply, all small businesses, that is, small businesses and nonprofits. This program is continuing. This is a loan that is direct from SBA, and it is a loan. You do have to pay this one back. But for small businesses, the terms right now are interest rate of 3.75% with a 30-year term. So it's pretty inexpensive funds. And again, this can be used for any normal, ordinary business expenses. There is a new program called the Targeted EIDL Grant. That program has not yet opened. That is coming soon. This is similar but different from the EIDL Advance that program was available this past summer and quickly ran out of funding. This is a derivative of that program, so it is not identical, and it is not open just yet, but you can read more information about it on our website. Likewise, the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. This is also something that's brand new, and it is a grant. It does not have to be repaid. It is for small businesses and nonprofits that operate, that are live venue operators, promoters, museum operators. You can see movie theaters, even museums and zoos can potentially qualify. Again, this program is also brand new and is not yet open for applications, but you can follow our website to stay up to date on the most recent information. There's also some information there to find out how much you could potentially be eligible for under this program if you qualify. We do expect over the next couple of weeks, there'll be more webinars and more information specifically on this program. So if you fall into one of these categories, please stay in touch with SBA so that you can receive the information about this as soon as it's available. Let's talk a little bit more about the Paycheck Protection Program because it has reopened. And as of last week, all types of lenders, all of our participating lenders are eligible to submit applications to SBA. So this iteration of PPP has some new terminology that it's helpful to understand. So we have what we're calling a first draw loan and a second draw loan. First draw simply means that this is your first time applying for PPP. So your first draw loan could have happened in 2020, or if you've never applied, you can now apply for your very first PPP loan. Second draw is referring to people who have already successfully obtained one PPP loan and now wish to apply for their second. So you will see there's some changes to the program. I think enhancements that most people are very happy about. There are additional eligible entities. A lot more types of nonprofits are eligible. So all forms of small businesses, nonprofits, 501c6s were added to the mix, the eligibility mix, as were electrical, telephone, and housing cooperatives, destination marketing organizations, and then even certain types of broadcast news organizations. So more types of entities, all of them, you have to have been in business as of February 15th of 2020 in order to qualify, and of course, be a small business. The loan terms are remaining the same. If you're familiar with the program from last year, you have a covered period, which is the period of time you spend the loan proceeds. It goes from 8 weeks as a minimum to 24 weeks as a maximum, and anywhere in between. All the loans have an interest rate of 1% and a term of 5 years. The eligible expenses has been enhanced a little bit as well. The non-payroll costs, there are some new categories, new expenses that you can include in this bucket. So operations expenses. So this is if you use accounting services, have software subscriptions or programs in order to operate your business, those things can be included. Supplier costs, similarly, can be included. Worker protection, if you have to buy PPE or have to correct some physical barriers or somehow retrofit your office or your business in order to meet some of the COVID standards, health standards, you can use the loans for that. And you also can use the loans to cover any property damage you may have sustained during the public disturbances and civil unrest this past summer. Quickly, on the second draw loans, I do want to point out a distinction. The eligibility for this is a little bit different. So not only do you have to be in one of those eligible borrower categories, the other conditions for being eligible for a PPP second draw include that obviously you received the first one and you used up all the funds. You do not have to go through the forgiveness process yet, but you do have to have used all the funds. Also, the size standard is different. The size standard is maximum 300 employees for any business that wants to apply for the second draw. And you have to show a reduction in your gross receipts. So at least a 25% reduction between comparable quarters in 2019 and 2020. So my recommendation is to first look at this on an annualized basis from 2019 and 2020. And if you have a 25% reduction across the board, you're good. Don't have to do any more math. But if you don't, then you're going to want to break out your 2019 receipts and your 2020 receipts quarter by quarter and compare. And as long as one of those quarters shows a 25% reduction, you can qualify. This program, this second draw loan does have a maximum of $2 million, and it's largely calculated in the same manner. It's a 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. Unless you are a business that has a NAICS code beginning with 72, so like the food and accommodation sector, then you can use a 3.5 times multiplier on your average monthly payroll. And you can use your 2019 or your 2020 payroll data, whichever is most advantageous to you. I just want to point out, I'll drive you back to our website for some more in-depth information. There are 2 unique applications, one for first draw, one for second. But there's also 2 documents I highly recommend you look at. There's one for the first draw and one for the second that talk more about how you calculate how much you could be eligible for. And then under the second draw, it also talks more about this revenue reduction, how you can calculate that, and it gives you lots of examples. So if you look at no other documents, I do recommend those 2 because they're really good guidance documents. And again, we've had some rule updates, and more information does continue to be published as it relates to PPP, especially the second draw and the forgiveness process. So just a quick, because I know I'm butting up against my time, but please feel free to reach out to SBA. We are all over the state. We have 6 offices here in California. We're easy to find. And in addition to us, there's our myriad of resource partners. And I hazard to guess how many locations and business advisors we have. I know here in Northern California, we have over 400 advisors available. So lots of resources for you to tap into. So with that, I will close up so we can go to our next speaker and take some questions.
Well, thank you, Julie. I really appreciate that. I know that our small businesses have really needed the assistance that has been given by the SBA, not only from the EIDL program, but from the PPP loans in round 2. I know for our bank at City National, we've already gone through 7,000 of our clients of the 8,000 that we did in our first round. So yeah, I think it's much smoother this time, and I encourage people to apply. Next up, we have from the Los Angeles LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce, Marquita Thomas. Marquita Thomas is a small business advocate and chamber leader with over a decade of experience. As the executive director of the LA LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce, also known as the LAGLCC, she is responsible for executing the organization's mission to provide visibility, advocacy, and technical assistance to LGBTQ and allied professionals. Ms. Thomas successfully advocated for LGBTBE recognition in the city of Los Angeles, making Los Angeles the largest municipality in the country to do so, though New York did just add. And she continues to work with several global brands to diversify their supply chains and is at the forefront of efforts to solidify an LGBTBE spend goal for the joint utilities in compliance with General Order 156. Now, my dear friend and mentor, Marquita Thomas.
Thank you so much, Mark. I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm experiencing a lot of stalling, but I'm hoping I can get through these remarks without having too many issues. The LAGLCC is very proud to be part of this important conversation. We thank you, Mark, the commissioner, and his team for inviting us, and we miss you at the chamber, Mark. Again, my name is Marquita Thomas. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I have been executive director of the Los Angeles LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce for about 12 years now. Just to give a little background on the LAGLCC, we are a 41-year-old organization, and our mission is to provide business development, leadership, advocacy, and visibility to LGBTQ and allied small businesses. We are an affiliate chamber of the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and between our current and prospective members, as well as our corporate partners, we boast about 5,000 local supporters. The chamber offers so many resources and opportunities for small business owners. We have an extensive list of business development workshops. So whether you want to learn QuickBooks or you're looking for ways to enhance your social media, or you have questions about access to capital, the Chamber offers workshops to help strengthen your skills. We also offer a multitude of networking opportunities for strategic alliances. The LAGLCC also offers legislative advocacy for the small business community at large and the LGBTQ entrepreneurs in particular. One aspect of our legislative advocacy is support of a spend goal for the California Public Utilities Commission. The LAGLCC is at the forefront of a conversation to deliver on General Order 156's mandate for a spend goal to be determined for LGBT business enterprises. To give some context, General Order 156 is a CPUC supervised voluntary procurement program. The program encourages active participation of the investor-owned utilities to procure or contract goods and services from women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, disabled businesses, and the newest addition to the program is LGBT-owned businesses. Currently, the spend for LGBT business enterprises is 0.17%, which in dollar amounts is $63 million. We believe strongly that with the growth in the market, that a spend goal of 0.5% should be achievable. This will result in an additional $130 million in the LGBT small business community. We are advocating for a stair-step approach to a spend goal, and the hope is that we will reach an agreement with the CPUC and the CPUC staff to aspire for a higher goal. But the conversation is continuing. In our conversations with the joint utilities, barriers to achieving a higher spend in the LGBT market have been identified. Some of them include increased technical assistance for suppliers, the unfortunate number of utilities who have a zero LGBT spend over the past 4 years, and the lack of fiscal support from many utilities with LGBT community organizations in their service footprint to help identify and cultivate contract-ready suppliers. The joint utilities claim that an additional barrier is market availability, but LGBTBEs are the only growing category of suppliers in the clearinghouse, with a growth of 650% in the past 5 years. And even more growth is possible with an aspirational goal. Also, to the issue of market availability, there are a number of contract-ready LGBT CBOs, LGBT business enterprises that are doing large-scale contracts in the private sector who have not yet been able to infiltrate the utility space. So we know the suppliers exist. We know that the hope is that at this year's CPUC en banc, we will be celebrating that stair-step approach to 1.5%. So keep your fingers crossed on that. Continuing with LAGLCC advocacy, in 2017, the LAGLCC began advocating for LGBTBE inclusion in the city of Los Angeles. And in 2019, we won that ask, making Los Angeles the largest city in the country to recognize LGBT business enterprises. But as Mark stated, that was until last week when New York recognized LGBT business enterprises in their minority contracts. So now, of course, New York is the largest city. But we are honored to be part of that legacy of more LGBT inclusion in large municipalities. So that is who we are. We are a strong, engaged network of small business advocates who want to be a resource for you. So if you are an LGBTQ business owner, or even if you aren't, please reach out to us at laglcc.org. We would be happy to have you as a member. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Marquita. That was a lot of great information, and I'm going to go through some of these questions now. I know that some of them have been answered by, some of the presentations that we have, but if you could make sure to open up your lines, I'm going to send the first question over to Commissioner Lara. Commissioner Lara, with California's workers' comp insurance carriers collectively reporting an underwriting profit of nearly 20%, what can the commissioner do to combat these increases during the difficult times?
Thank you, Mark. That's a great question, and one that we get all the time. I think we can all agree that we want to make sure our workers are protected, especially our vulnerable workers who are on the front lines, essentially fighting every day to help others get through the pandemic. So I'm keeping a close eye on the cost to all the parties involved, quite frankly. the financial cost to businesses that may be struggling to survive, the cost to health and recovery, the health and recovery of our workers, and the cost to the overall workers' compensation market. Business owners should also know that workers' compensation applies to our immigrant workers here in California. A bill that I authored allowed that to happen. I also issued emergency workers' compensation regulations to reflect the lower risk of worker injuries in the light of the pandemic. These new regulations will mandate insurance companies to recompute premium charges, which I think ultimately will result in savings for many of our small businesses and our businesses, because quite frankly, there's less people working, or you unfortunately had to let go of people, or you have switched your employees' roles now to maybe stay at home, which again brings down the total risk for the company, which no longer really reflects the payment of the premium that you were paying pre the pandemic. So we made all these changes during emergency regulations. That should be a cost saving to our businesses. I also, in the new regulation, excluded COVID-19 related claims from being included in future rate calculations, so that employers are not penalized if they have higher rates of COVID within their company or their business. We will deal with that at a later date. I didn't want to, I wanted to make sure that people felt comfortable stating their diagnosis so that they can get the treatment and care and not have the fear of it somehow impacting the workers' compensation rates for the employers.
That's fantastic. I'm going to stick with you, Commissioner Laura, because this other question, it has come up multiple times. So many businesses have been denied claims from their business insurers. Your office issued a requirement to accept, forward, acknowledge, and fairly investigate all business interruption insurance claims caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. What, if anything, has come of this order, and is your office actively investigating whether insurers' denials are correct?
Great question. As a result of the order I issued, insurance companies that were sometimes even flat, just denying claims without even an investigation are now properly investigating these claims. Now, my consumer services team is making sure that every claim is handled based upon its policy language, and we have had some success in getting some of these claims paid. However, there's still a big legal issue that is not yet resolved by the courts on how this virus exclusion should be interpreted and what is actually meant by physical damage. It is up to the courts to decide this legal issue. There's been a whole dozens of lawsuits across the state, across the country, here in California as well, that really concern this issue of what the interpretation is of these policies and whether these policies cover losses due to COVID-19. So we're watching what these cases look like and watching them closely as they move through the courts. I would say that if a business has an open claim they're concerned about, I invite you to call us at 1-800-927-4357. That's 1-800-927-4357. We have staff available to review your policies. We review it with you. They may be able to find something that you might have missed, and that may be helpful within your claim. We can talk to a live person, and we have several claims that have been resolved during this time after a thorough investigation from our team. Sometimes we look at another protection that you might have had in that policy that we might have skipped over, or just the insurance company might have messed up and giving you wrong information. All this allows us to be able to negotiate with the insurance company on your particular policy. And so I would say, one, if you haven't filed a claim, I would file a claim with your company if you want to do so. When you get a response, and if that response is a denial, collect that document and then give us a call so that we can review all the documents accordingly, look at your specific policy and see if there's anything that we can do extra, an extra thorough look. Maybe you have another protection that you might have overlooked that we can utilize to get you partial, or if not, your claims paid. We've been able to do that in some circumstances. So it's important to create that paper trail. And hopefully the courts solve this sooner rather than later. But I know it's a big, big issue for our business community.
That's some great resource information. I know that, I've heard from other business owners where your newer policies specifically exclude pandemic, but if you have an older policy, it may not be in there. So reviewing your policy, filing a claim, and then if you're getting denied, I'm going to give that phone number again, 800-927-4357, to speak with somebody at the Department of Insurance. So the next question I have is from Marquita. Marquita is one of the largest LGBTQ Chamber of Commerces. How has the Chamber supported its members during the pandemic, and do you have any suggestions for the small area chambers?
Yes, thank you for that question. The Chamber has gone into absolute overdrive since the national emergency was called. And Julie, you'll be happy to know, as I was walking home and the national emergency called, the first call I made was to the SBA. And I said, what can we do for our small businesses? What resources are available? And my contact there was like, I'm starting to hear something about an EIDL loan. And so within a couple of days, we had that programming available to our small businesses. So we've engaged all of our strategic partners, the SBA being one, so that our small business owners can get information about PPP and EIDL and all the changes with that. All of our banking partners have made themselves available to answer questions about PPP. We reached out to our SBDC so that we could work with them to provide workshops and technical assistance for our small businesses. We've of course moved to a virtual platform, and we've done networking and marketing events and technical assistance events, at least 2 a week since the national emergency. We, because we're always trying to grow our base of LGBT business enterprises, we launched a procurement series online with our local SBDC. It's a 4-week concierge service and class where we teach people how to get certified as LGBTBEs, or just to get certified in general, really, and how to leverage it, how to write a capability statement, what the procurement process is like, how to do business with the city and the utilities and corporations as well. We launched affinity groups so that we could have industry-specific programming. It was a marketing platform for our different members in different industries, and it was also an opportunity for them to connect and create strategic partnerships. And then with our corporate partners, we worked with them to do online programming about how to do business. So we did how to do business with Frontiers Communications, SoCal Gas, California American Water. We're doing a workshop on how to do business with Honda and T-Mobile, and not only how to do directly with those corporations, but how to do business with those primes. So we had workshops where the prime supplier for those entities were available to talk about the opportunities that they had available. So we've been very, very busy, and we just very happy to be a resource for our small businesses. Want them to, on the other side of this, be even stronger than they were before.
That's great. As a member and a sponsor of the chamber, just the amount of programming that you've been able to put on during this pandemic that has helped small businesses has really been appreciated. And, if there wasn't already a Wonder Woman, I would call you a Wonder Woman.
Thank you, Mark.
Next up, Julie, I have a few questions for you. And recently it was reported that California received less funding for COVID-19 resources than other areas of the nation. Has there been any report on the small business funding as well? If not, is this something that the SBA can look into?
Right. So all of the loan data for the PPP and the EIDL programs has been made publicly available. And data being data, you can interpret it in a lot of ways. So I would just point out California as far as number of loans and dollars, received more than any state. So California businesses did receive more money and whole in aggregate than any other state. But if you want to break down the data further or do some compare and contrast, that's where people might be thinking that the California small businesses didn't get their fair share, for example. But we definitely want all of our businesses to be able to access the programs that are going to advantage them the most. So this is where I do encourage you to reach out to us, to our resource partners, to Marquita and her team, and they can connect you to make sure that you have the information and you are able to apply accurately, correctly, timely, and access the programs that are going to be most beneficial for your business.
Wonderful. I'm going to follow up with, what is California's diverse and minority small business share of federal procurement?
Right. So I don't know, most people probably don't know. Before I came to California a few years ago, I was in Washington, D.C. for 15 years, where all we talk about is government contracting, it seems. But coming out here, I did take a look, and I was a little surprised that the federal government spends, roughly $50 billion in California each year. And the overall small business share of that is only in that last year in 2020 was only 11.5 billion. So to me, that represented a lot of opportunity for small businesses. And that's one of my initiatives, if COVID hadn't gotten kind of sidetracked us for a little bit here, but is to really try to get our small business community interested in federal contracting and being able to find the opportunities and figure out how to work with the agencies to maximize their ability to win these contracts. And also from the SBA side, we can then work with our sister agencies and encourage them to do more business with small businesses as well. So I definitely see a lot of room for opportunity, and I'm hoping, once we can, have businesses on more solid footing and are looking for additional opportunities, that we're going to be able to create more programming and more resources for our California small businesses to access federal contracts.
Wonderful. And that sounds like a lot of opportunity out there, and I look forward to seeing some of that programming coming up in the future when we have a little bit more breathing room. Right now, we got to get the funds out to the small businesses.
Right.
So I'm going to give, we're coming to the end of our hour. I'd like to give each one of you, a 30 to 45 second closing remark, and we'll start with Ricardo, our insurance commissioner.
Thank you again, Mark, for having us today. And it's important to have these very niche discussions with our LGBTQ business owners who often, struggle a little more to keep their businesses open and require and the need for services. So I just want to take the time to remind you all that the California Department of Insurance is here to help you no matter what issue or questions you have, whether it's your personal line of insurance for you and your family or for your business. Just a kind of a tip that I always leave you with is, if you're entering into a new insurance product or you're renewing your insurance product, instead of asking your agent what is covered in your policy, ask them what is not covered in your policy, so you know very clearly what you're being excluded out of. And so if you have any questions, call us at 1-800-927-4357, or you can reach us at insurance.ca.gov. We really stand ready to assist you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Julie, you're up next.
Thank you. I think my one takeaway is, no matter what's happening with your business, whether you're doing well, whether you're struggling, whether you're having to make some really tough decisions, you don't have to do it alone. Please reach out. We have the SBA offices, we have our resource partners, we all stand ready to work with you.
Wonderful. And Marquita?
I first want to thank you, Mark, and also you, Ricardo, for inviting me to be a part of this. It is an honor to hear both of you refer to me as a friend. It means so much. Julie, it's been an honor to share the panel with you. I just want to say that we are here to be a resource for you as a small business owner. And if it's not in the checkbook for you to be a member right now, that is perfectly fine. We just want to be a resource to you. We want to help keep your business strong. And we hope that you will reach out to us. It can be found online at laglcc.org.
Thank you, Marquita. I think if you get anything from our town hall today, SBA.gov is the website to get all the information on EIDL and PPP and loan programs and training. You can go to the California Department of Insurance website, and we also have the telephone number in the chat so that you can, ask questions, make sure that your policies and then your claims are being properly handled. And if you have any sort of issues with your insurance company, that's where you want to go. And then for our LGBT business enterprises and allies, I encourage you to go to laglcc.org. I'm a member. I've been a member for 8 years now, and I really appreciate all of the things that the Chamber has been able to provide us as a small business and as a sponsor. I want to thank you for your time today. I hope this was valuable. Know that even if you reach out to one of us, we all talk to each other. So if it's in somebody else's lane, we will refer you on to each other. And we thank you for your time today.